I seem to have developed a bit of a sub-theme in my videos of heavy fighters of World War II that didn't quite meet their potential. I've got videos on the British Westland Whirlwind, which at least saw some service early in the war and did well as a fighter bomber, as well as the Dutch Focke G1, which caused a sensation when revealed, but never got a chance to show properly what it could do. So let's look at a German heavy fighter this time. The Focke Wulf 187 Falcon was a single-seat heavy fighter that on paper had a lot going for it, but which lacked a role in the Luftwaffe's doctrine. Designed by Focke Wulf's legendary designer Kurt Tank, the FW-187 was built to fulfill the role of a high-performance long-range fighter. Tank's idea was not to build what was then considered by the Germans as a true heavy fighter, like the Messerschmitt Bf-110. Instead, he envisaged an intermediate class of aircraft between the heavy two-seat Bf-110 and single-seat fighters like the Bf-109. This fighter would combine comparatively heavy firepower, long range, high speed and good manoeuvrability. The proposal was met with a very lukewarm reception. The Luftwaffe had a clear idea of what they wanted for their Zesterer destroyer concept, and the Bf-110 was in production to meet it. Permission was granted for a test aircraft to be built, and this flew in May 1937. It promptly caused a stir as the aircraft managed a top speed 50 miles per hour faster than the Bf-109B fighters that were then coming into service, despite weighing twice as much and with double the range. Climb and dive rates also matched that of Germany's premier fighter. Some other examples were built for testing various engine fits, dive bomber potential and the possibility of adding a rear gunner, but the Luftwaffe stubbornly refused to accept that they required the aircraft. Only 6 prototype and 3 pre-production aircraft were built. Designated the FW-187AO, these 3 had an armament of 2 20mm MG-FF cannon and 4 7.92mm MG-17 machine guns. Equipped with Junkers Umo 210 engines, each producing 680 horsepower, the AOs had a top speed of 326 miles per hour, which at the time of their entering service in 1939 was very good. In many ways they mirror the aforementioned Westland Whirlwind, combining good performance, long range and heavy firepower, despite having engines that were low in power. The AOs were assigned to Werkstattstaffel Bremen, one of several locally raised units flown by aircraft manufacturers to protect their production sites. They were attributed with several kills with this unit, though now it's impossible to be sure whether this was purely propaganda. In fact, that was the type's principal contribution to the German war effort. As part of the propaganda campaign to inflate the strength of German forces, FW-187s were touted in films as a new fighter aircraft for the Luftwaffe. This led to the 3 fighters being deployed to a squadron in Norway in the winter of 1940-41. Here they were reported to be much more popular with the crews than the Bf-110s the unit operated, and, hearing this, the Reich Air Ministry quickly had them recalled back to their defence duties. The few aircraft built served as testbeds and ended up scrapped before the war ended, as more important priorities came up. While it is naturally easy to look back with hindsight and criticise decisions made in the past, it is quite startling that the Luftwaffe failed to appreciate not just the aircraft's potential, but the flaws in their destroyer concept. In fact, bitter experience would prove that the Luftwaffe would have done very well to have a high-performance, long-ranged heavy fighter capable of going toe-to-toe with single-seat fighters. During the Battle of Britain, the Bf-110s proved barely able of holding their own against Spitfires and Hurricanes, whilst the Bf-109s suffered from insufficient range to be able to escort bombers effectively. And this situation would be even worse once the campaign against Russia started. In fact, we have the perfect example of what the Luftwaffe could have had in their FW-187 if only they had got their air warfare doctrine tweaked correctly. Because about the same time the AOs entered service, another manufacturer was test flying a twin-engine, single-seat fighter that excelled as a long-range fighter bomber and which would go on to be one of the great aircraft of the war, the Lockheed P-38 Lightning. This aircraft would prove flexible in multiple roles, be the mount for America's highest-scoring ace, and would be nicknamed the Forked-Tailed Devil by German pilots, who certainly respected its attributes of heavy firepower, high speed and long range. Naturally, we are supposing the FW-187 would not have suddenly developed some horrendous characteristic that further development may have brought to light. But the success of the design in the limited frontline service it did perform does raise a thought. Perhaps if the Luftwaffe and Reich Air Ministry had not been so inflexible in their attitude, they could have had a really excellent aircraft in service that may have proven more valuable in the long run than the ones they did choose. As I said, the benefits of hindsight. That wraps up this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you are interested in military history and affairs, feel free to check out my website, militarymatters.online. I'll put a link in the description. Also, have a look at some of the other videos I've produced. You may find something else of interest. Check out some of the links coming up.
Yeah!